legs are shredded pain. Marines and cyclists breaking the chains. No fuel needed, just power and drive. Ride with me, let's come alive.
All right, here we go again. Zwift Racing League Stage 2. And we are on turf and surf for what feels like the 100th time this past couple months. Just saying what's up to a few peoples in the chat and looking to get ready to launch, because this stage, if you haven't seen the recons, which I'm sure you have by now, or haven't seen any of the live streaming that's been done, which again, I'm sure you've seen it by now, this stage started off like a rocket or a runaway train. I thought my focus was stay with the front group. I thought this stage and how this stage was raced is what Monday for me was going to be like, the Community Racing Festival on Jurassic Coast. That's how I thought things were going to go, where it was going to be strong, strong group, tough, making me work to stay up front. And that's ultimately how this stage played out. So as you can see already, in the 400s, usually by now people would start to soft pedal a bit and ease off, but I saw this gap starting to get created, and my focus was I'm going to stay with this front group as long as I can. My intention was not to go for the sprint, but I knew I wanted to use the momentum that the sprinters were going to create to stay in the front. And where I'm at, you can see that there's a little bit of a split, a couple, a meter here and there. And so it's like, I kept an eye on that. That's what I was looking at, is, where the gaps were starting to form. I wasn't so much worried about people going off the front, but where the gaps were formed and how can I stay on the wheel of the people that are there. So you can see me floating to the front a bit, which is where I started soft pedaling a bit, because like I said, I wasn't planning on going for the sprint. And in reality, what I should have done, obviously looking back now, we can, talk about this, but what I should have done is I should have allowed myself to keep pushing forward through the group, because you saw I got into about the 20s in terms of the placement, and I should have just kept myself going forward so that way I can end up towards the front of these sprinters and contest the sprint. Not that I would have kept up with some of the stronger riders, because we had some people just firing off. You see, all these people here launching through, so I was just focused on, at this point, I knew I wasn't going to contend the sprint, so I was focused on, let me just stay with this group. And initially, when I was riding, I thought I was, doing good. I was like, oh man, I'm, up with the sprinters. I saw, I got 38th place on the sprint, and then I looked at my placement. I was like, oh, I'm in like 40th place. I'm like, I'm further back than I thought. So I see this little gap here, and again, refocus on, let me catch up to this group in front. Let me catch up to the bigger group up front, which really ultimately ended up being a waste of watts, which is why I'm just kind of fast forwarding through this. I ended up wasting a lot of watts on that because everybody came together reasonably quick. And so as we go through the seizure-inducing fast forward to get to, where we actually start to get out of McCurry and into the forest area, this is generally where I expect to get dropped, because people start pushing a little bit hard through these, through the forest here, because there's a couple little spots where it goes uphill for a little bit. But like I said, this race was really all about the Shisha climb. So we pretty much stayed together this entire time. So as we come up through the bridge here, I push a little bit hard because this is another spot where I generally get dropped by the group. And so I was just focused on, let me stay with the group as long as I can. I didn't want to be off the front. So I would push myself up and then kind of soft pedal a bit to not go all the way to the front. I really wanted to stay in the draft as much as possible, because this was a very strong group, very, very strong group. You can see a lot of so if you look, there's a rider in here. It's coming to the middle of the screen right now. I'll add an arrow effect. in post, but basically, there's a rider on the mountain bike. He's there on the left right now in the yellow jersey, and he did great. He got 22nd place out of 70 something that finished, or how many ever finished, which is fantastic, considering he's on a mountain bike. And so this was, again, us just cruising through McCurry, or through through this part, which generally, ends up splitting the group up before the Shisha climb, because of the fact that it is, there's a couple small little pitchy hills, 2, 3, 4%, um, that by the time you get here, you're already hurting. So this part coming up is what I would consider like the essentially the warm up act to the Shisha climb, where we get just a little bit of elevation, just enough to kind of get blood flow into the legs. And if you're not prepared on this, I feel like that's where you're going to start to fall behind really quickly. So like I said, I did my best to stay up front. I didn't want to always be in the wind, but I was more often than I cared to care to express. But that's how I entered, essentially entered the climb here. And so as we start to approach this climb, I'm looking at what gear I'm in and how can I ramp up, because I didn't want to waste any watts at the base of the climb. I have a tendency to be in a gear that's too low, so I end up overspinning my gears and not climbing well. And so once I get to the base of the climb, I shifted up a gear and just went for it. I was trying to hold the mid 300, upper 300s, I would say, low 400s on the actual steep parts of the climb. And then as the climb starts to, flatten out a bit, stay in the 300s, in the low 300s, because I wanted to stay with this front group. I didn't want to get dropped on this climb, but this climb was a lot longer than my power has the capability of completing. So you can see there, I just kind of flattened out. My power just, what felt like it just stopped. And so I saw this group go ahead of me, and I was like, you know what, let me hold on to the back wheel. Let me stay with this person. We're in a little bit of a flat. I can rest just enough to, get to the back of this group. This is a really good draftable climb. So you see that, right now I'm getting 40, 50-ish watts savings. So it is a, good draftable climb. So again, having a bike that has the ability to draft well, has good aerodynamics, is a plus on a stage like this, on a climb like this. You see a couple other dirt team riders from different teams, past me. I do my best to kind of give myself a big push here across the sprint and just kind of coast. Because again, I didn't want to lose the back of this group, but at that point, I was cooked. I looked back and thought about it. I was like, you know what, my hydration wasn't perfect, wasn't what I normally, how consistent I was normally on other races. My legs were hurting from yesterday's stage on the Jurassic Coast, so I definitely was not as prepared for this stage as I could have been, but ultimately did good. So we got this little group of 3 that formed up, and we just kind of soft pedaled until, the group behind us slowly catching up, and you see, the bubbles on the right, the group bubbles just kind of shift. You see JD, come up, fly past me, and, he's kind of in front of this group for a little bit. And so we just stayed as a group here. And man, it goes to show the power of having a group this size, because even though we were kind of alternating off the front, my focus was, if JD's going to go up front, I'm going to push past him and let him draft off my wheel. Because at this point, my race is essentially done. I am not gonna place well. At least not that I thought. I wasn't gonna place well on this part of the, because of the gravelly bits. That part usually also shreds the group like it did. So we got another group of 3 up front. But again, the power of having a good draftable group, we started to catch up little by little. And you can tell, if you look at the mini map, you can see that our groups are fairly close together. because the front group looks like they really took their time getting down that down that hill, and just did their best to draft off each other and kind of ease the pressure before this next climb. So as we're getting ready to get into the pain cave here, I'm looking at how close not only the group in front of us is, the group of 2 or 3 riders, but and then the group in front of them, because that's the main pack, that's the main peloton. And so I'm thinking, they're close enough to taste, they're close enough to catch, especially on this climb. I, my heart rate's in the 160s and kind of holding there, or upper 160s and holding there. So I thought, you know what, let me push, let me see how long I can, hold this climb for. And I just go for it. I shifted up a gear and just, you know, switching between getting in and out of the saddle, trying to use my weight to help me catch these groups little by little. I inadvertently, I didn't realize this at the time, and when I saw it happen, I was like, oh crap. My sweat ended up triggering my aero boost. And so I saw myself passing these people. And I'm like, man, I'm doing great. And then I noticed that the aero boost was going, and I was like, no, it was completely wasted. Completely wasted. So I was upset about that and had to really push to then catch these, the group in front, and just like I said, kept going in and out of the saddle as we hit the harder bits of the climb, getting out of the saddle to really use my weight to, carry my momentum over. And then on the flatter bits, trying to use my draft to catch up little by little, just taking places back as I can, coming up to the flat part of the stage, which I knew that I could use my momentum to just keep going forward. I didn't want to drop, I didn't want my watts to drop too much on this flat part, but I also wanted to get some rest. Again, I'm seeing the main pack right in front of me, group of 28 right in front of me. I know I could catch them on the harder part of this climb because it looks like they're just trying to rest as much as possible on the climb to then contest a sprint, which obviously, is a good tactic with a group that size. Unless you got one really strong rider that can break away with, a couple kilometers left, then just stay together as a group, and you can kind of use the group to draft on the final sprint. But like I said, I'm just doing my best to catch group by group. And as my momentum is starting to carry up, I end up, as I'm going up and down, my sweat is dripping on my phone. And guess what? So I'm going to pause here real quick because I want to, do a public service announcement on why sometimes using the companion app is not the best during races, because sweat will land on your phone and can just magically press buttons that shouldn't be pressed. And in this case, as you see on the screen, it managed to press and hold the end ride button. I am so glad that it did not trigger the save or delete or anything like that and kick me out of the race, because I would have I would have gone beyond rage quit. I would have probably thrown my bike or my phone. I was so mad when I saw this pop up. And so I did the best that I could to just react to it and, cancel out of it, stop, lock my phone and keep going. But as we'll see here in a sec, as I unpause, I just lost so much momentum because I had to stop, pay attention to my phone, see what was happening. These two guys passed me. This third person starts to pass me. A fourth person starts to pass me. The bat passed me. I was so mad that I took that energy out on this part of the climb, because again, I was in, you know, closing in on that front group, and I knew I could catch them on the last part of this climb. I had such great momentum and just completely lost it all. And as you guys know, if you have a good momentum going, so my trainer, I have an elite justo, my trainer has a 6 kilogram weight. And so once it gets up to speed, it feels good. Like you feel like you can hold your momentum well. The problem is, as it starts to slow down, it's like dragging a dead body, like dragging a car that's in park, how whatever analogy works best. It really is like dragging, a lead weight or a cinder block or whatever to get the momentum back up. And so that's basically what happened is, I got on the pedals to try and get the momentum, and my muscles were just on fire. And so I did my best to draft with this group, stay with them on this flat part again. I really wish the HUD would make up its mind and just stay on for these climbs instead of on off, because that, not knowing how long I have left on these flat parts and whether or not I need to push harder is a bit frustrating. So we got a little bit of a downhill. I start, pushing up the RPMs a little bit just so I can catch on to the back of this group. I knew that I had, just enough in me left to power through this last little bit of a climb. And as I start to ramp up the momentum here, I wanted to essentially not only use my momentum, because this bike, the Pinarello Power, or the bike that I got from Pinarello Power. So the Pinarello Dogma F 2024 with the disc wheels really is a fantastic combination. At my weight, at 85.5 kilograms, it allows me to kind of get up to speed quick and, essentially with good aerodynamics, flow up to the next group a lot faster. So staying on the back of this group, I knew I could draft off of them in order to move up a few spaces. Because I lost the back of the main pack, I thought I could, at least, make up a few places here. And so I started to end up, you know, getting in front of these couple riders, and I knew this rider in the Zwift kit. I knew I could get in front of him, but I didn't want to get too far in front because, again, I'd lose the draft. So I just started to just punch real hard. I saw a green banner, not the green banner. And so I eased up here thinking, oh, great, I'll come across the line. And no, I have to pedal more. I was not even close. Still 300 meters to go. So I just pushed the power up into the 400s to hopefully stay where I was at. But at this point, I am cooked. My heart rate's in the mid 180s, low to mid 180s. And I knew that I needed to just keep, pushing a couple of these little hard efforts to get across the line. I see these two guys pass me, and I was like, you know what? I'll let them have it because I was already done at that point. Between the frustration of my phone locking, or not locking, but attempting to stop the ride, and then again, having to lock the screen, and just, my my mental focus was not there for this last kilometer. And so, and again, missing the banner, it was just not there. And so I ended up in 33rd place, which I was excited about. One of our other team members was in ninth, and then a couple others came in right after me. So we did great as a team. Ultimately, we ended up in ninth overall as a team, which I'm excited about. Uh, and so right now it's focused on the next stage, focused on Manhattan. I know there's going to be some recon videos out there. JD is going to be traveling, so he's not going to, that I know of, he's not going to have a recon video out. Maybe he'll produce one last second, and that'll be a great option to get to know what's coming up on the next stage. If not, Rob Zwifter, I know he's going to have recon videos out, and I'm sure others will too. So I'm going to be live streaming that race since JD is going to be traveling. Like I mentioned previously, my focus is if JD's live streaming, I'm not going to live stream. But if he's not live streaming, then I will live stream the race. So hope you come by. Hope to make him proud of my live stream abilities, even though it's not going to be as awesome as his, with his Streamlabs setup and all the point system, which I think is fantastic. It's a fun way to engage and interact and keep the chat active. But for me, just send a comment, send a encouragement, or push harder in the chat. I will do my best to catch, keep monitoring the chat while I'm racing and engage that way. But I will say bye for now. It was an absolutely exhausting race, but I did put up better power numbers and I ended up getting a higher FTP. Unfortunately, I don't have the screenshot, but I did go up to 255 from 235. That just goes to show you how hard this race was, that my FTP went up because of this race. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for sticking around if you stuck around this long. And again, I will see you in Manhattan for the next race.